What is up, guys? Welcome to the Transparency. Good morning. We're in for a little treat this morning. We're going to start off right away. Jennifer Drake tells ISP all about Eldora Gatchel and her feelings during the investigation into the murder of her husband. So Brian Drake was killed 3/12/2020. Jennifer Drake would be interviewed by ISP on 3/16, 3/17, 3/26, 4/3. There may be other times, but they are not turned over to the defense. Ready for some tea? I saved the best for the morning cup of coffee that you're having. Just because if it's not as strong as you need it to be on this lovely Friday, because we're going to have the best weekend ever. But I'm going to give you a little bit of Bailey's and Jameson in that coffee. Is that even what you put in those coffees? I don't even know. Check it out. Here we go. Again, good morning, everybody. Woo, come on in, come on in, come on in. Share a screen with all of you guys.
Okay, it's Thursday, March 26, 2020 at 4:09 p.m. This is Detective Sergeant Van Leuven in the Idaho State Police District 1 conference room. With me is Detective Tollison, and we're here speaking with Jennifer Drake. Okay, so you had texted me earlier in the day and said you wanted to get together and talk about some stuff. Do you want to go first?
Sure. There's not much. It's just little random things I wake up thinking, and one of them that just keeps, I'm hesitating to say things. One of them that just keeps, if they're on my brain, I feel like I need to say it just in case. Something that keeps plaguing me is that I know you guys, I'm assuming, have talked to Eldora Gatchel already. Mm-hmm. And I love that woman. I know she loves us dearly. We met her brother, who was in from Hawaii, and met him as the last person I saw him. And ever since they came, I think it was the day or the day after that I talked to you guys.
Is it Eldora or
yes,
Eldora?
Eldora, Eldora. And I think you guys have already talked to her. She was that last patient.
We haven't talked to her, but other detectives in our office have talked to her.
Okay. So the thing that I just, and I don't know, this text that, first about him. She is married. No, so Eldora's husband. We have known them for a long time, but I don't remember ever meeting him. We've been to their house, and she's been to ours. She's been to several of our children's performances. She drives down for it. And I remember at one point, Brian has talked about her husband, but he has mentioned that they don't have a really close marriage. It's a little bit estranged or a little bit odd. And every time we see them,
Have you ever seen her husband?
Not that I can remember. Like, I have racked my brain because I've been to their house. I remember everything we looked at and we did, and we were with her, and I cannot in my brain form what he looked like.
How long have you known her?
Probably 6 years.
And how did you meet her?
Through him being a patient. She was a patient, and she had invited us up several times, and then Brian had told her, I think the very first time we met, she came down to one of our children's performances, because our children do a lot of acting and stuff. And they had a bond through faith, because they have a lot of those conversations.
Brian and Eldora.
And Eldora. And I've never thought it odd, because I feel like I have a good discernment of people. She's always been very, very kind. At one point, she really reached out because she really wanted to hang out some more as a girlfriend, and I just couldn't. At the time, I kind of let that go. She lives in Sandpoint, and she had wanted to kind of get girlfriends together, and because she's farther and I do have a lot of girlfriends, it was hard for me to make that happen. And so I've never mistrusted her, but the more I keep thinking is the fact that the husband has never been around. And I know how much she loved my husband. It seemed, even as I talked to him, it was always very platonic. There was never, and they would go months without seeing, to where it would be months before she'd come to the office. It would be when she would have problems, But if they had marital problems, and it was constantly a thing that she looked up to my husband so much, I never know those discussions that happened behind the door, and whether or not her husband just got tired of maybe hearing about Brian. I don't know, but it's one that I know that she's known for a long time. They've been, that I am aware of, there's been nothing, and even when I see her, it's not like she's gushy over him. She's just been very thankful for him. And I have never seen anything even close to inappropriate. But the fact that every time I see them and every time Brian kind of talks about, I just remember in my brain thinking their marriage is not very good, but they're fine. Like, I don't know if it's because he just didn't have a faith that she did. I don't remember the marital problems.
Did they have children?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you remember her husband's name?
No. Like, I can't even remember what he looks like. But I know she's married. And if you find out that I'm totally wrong, like, I feel like I am in La La Land that I can't remember details of things I should know. But I keep...
Like the fact that Eldora has 2 kids that you know of, motherfucker? Maybe that's one? I about fell out of my fucking chair. I fell out of my chair. Eldora has 2 kids. Eldora loves kids. That's why she goes to your children's plays, you fucking liar.
Going back to her husband, I woke up even this morning just thinking, why is it that I've never met him? I don't know anything about him. I remember hearing that they aren't very close. It's a very detached marriage. And I keep going back to this text that this Kipman guy across the way kept saying, I know it sounds crazy, but he's a very charismatic, good-looking man. Maybe it was a woman who, charismatic, good-looking man. Maybe it was a woman who, charismatic, good-looking man. Maybe it was a woman. I just keep thinking, what if it's, I know even in Austin how many times Brian, he sees a lot of women up there. And the first thing my sister-in-law said to me when she came here for the funeral was that somebody over there said, well, I know a lot of Amish, especially Mennonites, they have a very strong current of jealousy as husbands. And you really should look into the fact that a lot of these women come to see Brian and they talk to Brian about everything. I mean, they'll come home and I have a lady cry on my table every day. I mean, he has so many women crying to him. And what if it's one of these husbands that just, they come home and they talk all about Brian and...
That's definitely one of the major angles that we're looking at and that we have followed up on many different things. And there's a few conversations I'll ask you later about a couple of specific people that we followed up on in that regard. But that's definitely our prime suspicion is that there was some jealous husband that did this. So going back to Eldora and her brother, are you confident that person was her brother? Did they look like brother and sister?
Yeah, kind of. They both look very quiet, dark.
Did anybody, a couple people I should back up because we haven't talked for a while.
Yeah.
We have conducted as an office somewhere between, and I can't put a figure on it, but probably around 75 interviews at this point. We've talked to patients, we've talked to friends, we've talked to family, we've talked to people in the community, we've canvassed bars and restaurants and the gym and people that work out at the gym. And so we have a much better picture of his life and his past. And I have a list of questions to talk to you about specific things that I think maybe when you were in here the first time that you were maybe still in, probably still are, but really closer to the event and still sort of in shock and, unsure about the whole thing, and with your mother and with, his brother. And so maybe there were some things that you didn't want to talk about so much. But I'm hoping we can get into some of that, just because at this point we don't have a suspect, we don't have a motive, we don't know why this happened. We're still flailing around in the dark. So there's so many different avenues that we're following up on that I'm just hoping that some of this might help. But regarding Eldora and her brother, I will tell you this. her brother, it's curious to me, she filmed that video of him playing the ukulele and then gave you a copy or gave somebody a copy of it.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that he fits the physical description of the person that the eyewitness saw running away or walking quickly away from the building after the shooting. He couldn't pick him out of the lineup, but he says that could be him. So he doesn't have any criminal history. We've reached out to Hawaii, nothing in-house, no problems there. Can't imagine what the motive would be, but he was there in close proximity within minutes of when the shooting occurred, and he does match the description.
Have you confirmed that he's having kidney failure and is on dialysis?
No.
We don't have a motive. I just think Jennifer Drake gave you a motive. I'm gonna die. And you just told Jennifer Drake what? When eyewitness, she went in there fishing for information and you just gave it to her. This is a fishing expedition, you fucking idiot. And what do? You're giving it to her, Van Leuven. Ow! Nothing like starting a morning Friday like this. Just giving it to her.
This week we're going to turn and see if we can get him back in. We may have to go. I don't know if he's even still here, but we'll find him and interview him again. Go down that road and just see what the deal is.
You never did that, motherfucker. You're going to go to Hawaii, you fucking lying sack of shit. Garbage. This is such garbage, and I love it.
Because she was telling me that he was on dialysis even the day of the funeral because they were going to come and then ended up not coming. And so that's why even when Bubba texted me because he was on, he's like, have you thought about, because I saw the video and it was my sister-in-law got a hold of the video and sent it around. And so he was thinking of that same thing. And I'm like, he's on dialysis, but I can hardly, he's walking so slow. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, okay, he's so slow. But then the more I thought, weird things have happened, I guess, but I didn't get that spirit at all.
Did you say they weren't at the funeral?
No. Unless they showed up and I haven't looked through the list.
So one of your family members told us that they were, and that the niece was actually filming and had filmed some of the family members at the funeral. Do you recall that?
They said that Eldora and then that they were at the funeral? Oh, they didn't come up and say.
Not only that, they said that her expression of grief seemed over the top to them.
Oh, I did not know there.
What is the niece's name?
My niece? Oh, her niece.
Her niece, yeah.
I had never met her before. She was just kind of there. I could tell you. Over there.
And you don't know her, the niece?
No, I don't.
How old is she, do you know?
I'd say she's probably younger than me. I'd maybe say 39, 38.
She was. She's a smoke show.
I know nothing about her.
Do you know where she's from?
I don't. I just assumed she came over with her brother from Hawaii, but that's all a good question. There were just so many people in the room when they came over to the house. It was kind of took me off guard to begin with. And then as he started playing the ukulele and the whole family came in, and it was emotional because she said, I have something to show you. And I did think, I looked at her, I was like, how in the world you've been seeing him for 6 years, and how did you know to videotape him right now? And did you see the videotape? I'm talking like straight up on him, which to me was a gift because I was like, wow, like this is my husband right here in front of me. And it was very emotional for me. And, I keep going back to the fact that he this is his brother who's on dialysis. Maybe he's looking at the end of his life, and maybe that's why she's videotaping him while they're sitting there waiting. And so I always try to think the best of people, especially because she's never given me a reason ever to question her. But the other thing along that
How hard, Jennifer, are you trying to push the fact that Caleb Picone-Nazar was on dialysis?
line is, and I know you guys have thought this, I'm just speaking out loud over the fact that this has to be somebody who is cased to this joint. Like, is there no cameras that has looked at every single Thursday for how many Thursdays? Because they had to have known his schedule. They had to have known that he stays this late. They had to have known that, like, it means they had to have walked past that window multiple times, or they didn't see him. Or
There's no video that covers that building or that side of the street. The only video that we have is north and south.
You fucking liars. But Jennifer Drake just says, case the joint. Case the joint.
So there's no...
She's trying to get information out of you. And what is she getting? She's getting it, and you're giving it to her, man. ISP detectives Gary Tolson and Van Leuven in an interview with the wife giving her their intel.
So when we were looking around, it showed the one that, the coffee shop, and it was the drive-through, and there's one right underneath.
Those don't record.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Neither or in the gun store.
Yeah, none of those cameras don't record.
Not in the gun store?
Yeah, they do.
There's cameras, they're just for show.
Oh, for the love.
Oh, for the love.
So again, this comes back to...
Unbelievable. So there's no surveillance that's showing anything. Unbelievable.
Sir-
So there's no surveillance that's showing anything. Unbelievable. So
Since we've got our vehicles and some people on the street walking, and we've tracked down all those people and interviewed them there was
No, you
a couple
haven't.
walking their dog. There was another guy that was the first person that Watersbury suspected. Those people have all been interviewed. They all heard the shot. They just didn't see anything.
No, they didn't.
We have one witness that was across the street that was like from here to the front door that heard the shot, looks over there, sees a guy coming around the back of the building. He's walked back in the back of the building before, and he knows that section between the fence and the back of the building is sort of odd. I mean, it's sort of grown up, and yes, there's a path there, but it's not commonly used.
Yeah.
So when he sees the guy coming out of there, he's like, that's weird. And he says, hey, was that you? And the guy turns and looks back and then quickly walks up away from him. He goes and jumps in his car, grabs his dogs, trying to track the guy down, and doesn't see him again.
So this is not the man from the apartment across the way.
Yeah, the man from the apartment across the street.
Across the street.
That's the witness.
And he actually says something.
He yells across the street when he sees the guy walking out of there. He says, hey, was that you?
Van Leuven, you need to be fired. Fired. Absolutely fired. So now they know who is saying this name, who's going to identify Caleb Picone-Nazar, right? And now Jennifer Drake is just going to repeat everything that she's heard from the lead investigators in this case, and you shake down those people so that they won't ID Eldora's brother and other things. He's not lying to her. He is telling her word by word everything that has transpired with his eyewitness in this case.
The guy turns and looks, and then and he describes Keikoa. He describes dark clothing. He even describes that silver vest kind of thing, which he was wearing. He describes the heavy features, but he can't pick him out about a lineup. So
Do you want to know why, Van Loovy Poovy Boo? Huh, doo doo? Huh, poo poo? Because somebody told Isaac to do exactly what he did in the meeting, and he picked 10 people.
for us, it's the best he can do is point us in the right direction.
Then why didn't you follow it?
We don't have any motive why Keikoa would do this.
Yeah.
She just told you.
So that's something we're going to look into.
You didn't. Did you? Because I can't
It's interesting
wait.
that several different friends and family have
There's not one single report of you ever interviewing Keikoa Nazara. And he didn't go to Hawaii, you fat fuck. He went to Virginia.
Mentioned to us that they thought the video, one person said the video made the hair on the back of her neck stand up when she watched it.
Who? Who said that?
She thought it was odd. But anyway, so we'll follow up with that.
Okay.
What else?
Wait.
The guy walking out of there, he says, "Hey, was that you?" The guy turns and looks, and then and he describes Keikoa. He describes dark clothing. He even describes that silver vest kind of thing, which he was wearing. He describes the heavy features, but he can't pick him out about a lineup. So
Isaac told you this on March 13th. From March 13th to March, here you're telling her this on March 26th. Why did you not interview Keikoa Nazara between March 13th and March 26th? Oh, wait, you did. You interviewed him one time with Eldora and the niece and the husband all in the same room, all at the same time. Because that's what you do. Because that's how you do things.
us, it's the best he can do is point us in the right direction. We don't have any motive why Keikoa would do this.
Yeah.
So that's something we're going to look into. And it's interesting that several different friends and family have mentioned to us that they thought the video, one person said the video made the hair on the back of her neck stand up when she watched it. She thought it was odd. But anyway, so we'll follow up with that.
Okay.
What else?
This is a dead end, but I just thought I should say something to you. Because I take this lightly because I don't want to send you on a rabbit trail. But I completely forgot about this, and the only reason I'm thinking of now is because this happened today. Is 3 years ago, so when we moved here 8 years ago, we moved into a rental. There was a man who was doing all the home improvements. We got to know him very well, got to know our family very well because he was always hired from the rental agency company, the person who owned the house at the time we were renting. And we were always kind. He's by himself. Come in, feel free to come eat. You know, he's tall. He always wears his Confederate hat. If you live around here, you know Claus Hawes because his name is Claus, Klaus, Hawes, Hawes.
Haws. Is this the guy that you rented the house from that had the multiple bedrooms on both sides?
No,
split up.
that's Josh Whitaker. That would be the other one I was going to tell you about.
Wait till you hear this.
And I'm sure that this guy is nothing but he's a little crazy.
Is he the guy that drives around and waves everybody?
Probably.
Confederate thing on the side of his car?
Yes. He does have, well, he has Confederate bumper stickers all over. He doesn't have a flag. Wears a Confederate outfit everywhere he goes. He's probably 75. We became very close to them. We tried to, always, yes, you're welcome. You're here to do the fence. Come in and have dinner. He started hiring my son. And this was, 3 years ago, he came in to ask me to look at his computer because he was struggling and he couldn't get his email figured out or whatever. And I said, just bring it in and I'll figure it out. I'll fix it. And while he was standing there, Brian had taken him downstairs. And while they were downstairs, I started bringing stuff up and I saw young boy porn. I saw child porn on his computer. And inside, my sons worked for him. At the time, they were 13 and 14. And of course, he had become very close with us. I immediately, when Brian came upstairs, I looked at him and I just whispered, I said, I need him gone now. You have to get rid of him now. So as soon as he did, and he's a big talker, he's very hard to get rid of. He is half crazy. But once he left, I told Brian everything that had happened. And he went to Brian, to Klaus's house and said, I stood on his porch and said, I need you to know we love you as a family, but I need you to know this is what we found. And as a family, you may never see my children again. do not call me, do not call my wife, do not go by the house. And at that time, we were in the middle of moving. So we moved probably even within the week, month, which I don't know exactly the date of when he addressed him.
Okay, so you were in a house that you were renting from him?
From his friends. And he was like the caretaker.
Of the house?
What is the address of that house?
It was 9500 T Rose Trail. It's been sold now to, it has completely different owners.
That's not where you
Was that
live.
in Post
It was in
Falls?
Post Falls, yeah.
That's not that address.
And what year did
No, I'm sorry, not T Rose Trail, that's a different one. Marina Court Drive.
There you go,
Marina
honey.
Court. I apologize.
9500 Marina Court Drive?
Marina Court, yes. It is Marina Court, but now I'm trying to remember if it was 9500.
5520,
It's on.
5520.
Marina Court.
How do you know that? That's what it is. 5520 Marina Court.
Why are you going to try to get the other address?
East Marina Court.
You found child
Yes.
porn? And as a Christian youth
Yes.
minister,
So he stood on his porch, and he lived in Post Falls. Told him, he was really upset. He's like, that was not me. It's a friend who was using my laptop, and when I got back, I couldn't get it off of there. But it was all my friend. Please don't blame me for this. And again, Brian was very loving, and he just said, this is where this relationship cuts off. Do not reach us. Now, we moved shortly after. That's been 3 years. I have never talked or heard from him until he showed up at my house today. Which is a bummer, because he found out about Brian's death, found out where we lived,
How did you find that?
showed up today. I think he found out because Tom, the person who used to own the house, didn't know about all this. And then he lives in California, and I think he ended up telling him. That's my guess. I haven't talked to Tom to find out. But
Tom
goes,
who?
well, I've known where you, because I said something, he asked to see the kids, and the kids don't know why. They just know that Klaus went dark. Like, what happened to Klaus?
went
And so,
dark.
we just purposely broke that tie, and I'm assuming that's how he found out. But mind you, it's been 3 years. He hasn't known where we're at. He has not tried to call, text, and nothing. He's really tall. He knows, everybody knows who he is, and yet he kind of has no friends. So I think that this is absolutely nothing and nobody. Be prepared if you end up talking to him. You will have him for hours, just so you're aware. So I don't think it's anything, but when he showed up today, I just thought, oh, for the love. This was another person that just was not happy with Brian. But we ended on halfway to good terms, which is weird.
Child
Josh
porn?
Baker was that
Hang on. So he brought the computer over for Brian to help him.
for me? He
For
kept
you.
saying he was struggling. He couldn't get these emails out. And I said, well, bring your laptop over. I'll fix it. I'll fix your Gmail. I'll get you set up. And so when he brought it over, they went downstairs, and I was trying to fix his computer, and I went onto the internet, and that's what I saw. It's all this child, teenage porn, underage boy porn. And immediately realized my children were with him again.
Did Jennifer think that they went and got the router?
So he showed up today.
Yeah.
Did he come in the house? What happened?
He came, so I was sitting in the car. My girlfriend had just shown up and had some stuff for me, so I sat in the car. A car came up that I did not recognize, and all of a sudden he walked out. And I just thought, oh, what do I do? But my brother-in-law, Johnny, was at the door. He wasn't going to let him in until my son showed up at the door. It's like, oh my goodness, Klaus, and gave him a big hug, had him come in. Apparently, Johnny said he started crying. I can't believe Brian is dead. I just heard about this. I walk in, he hands me a $1,000 check. I'm like, no. He's like, nope, I've got lots where it comes from. And of course, I can see too, I'm not going to take his money. But it was odd because I could tell he was very awkward. He didn't know how to, it's been 3 years. Brian's gone. Here's a check. And then he literally sat at my table and started talking, and we couldn't get rid of him for at least an hour.
Claus, Klaus, Hawes, Hawes.
Yeah, he lives in Post Falls, and you'll find he owns a bunch of rentals. He's been here for years.
Wait, he owns a bunch of rentals? Now he owns a bunch of rentals?
Probably completely harmless. Vince gone, here's a check. And then he literally sat at my table and started talking, and we couldn't get rid of him for at least an hour.
Claus, Klaus, Hawes, Haws.
Yeah, he lives in Post Falls, and you'll find he owns a bunch of rentals. He's been here for years.
He was a handyman a second ago that like helped out the people that he was like the caretaker. Now he owns a bunch of properties. How'd that happen? How does somebody go from being a caretaker to now owning a bunch of properties, Jennifer? Slip of the tongue, honey?
And I'm sure probably completely harmless.
Jennifer Drake's a
So
Christian
you're
and
bringing him up because he is different.
It's very different.
and she doesn't report child porn.
Kind of on a, yeah, but that was 3 years ago, so.
He's never sent you emails. He's never thrown a rock through the window.
Never called,
Never
never
called.
Once Brian told him nothing, he has never tried. Now, he's always had our phone number and our text, but he has never tried to reach us. And he's never known our address. So I know he didn't know how to, just trying to see you, anybody here.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. And my mother actually is the one who brought up Josh Whitaker this week. And that was on my brain. Again, I don't know that it leads anywhere, but
Okay. Josh Whitaker. Okay, tell us about Josh Whitaker.
So he was the one that when we were trying to move from Marina Court, we needed while we were looking to buy a house, they wanted to sell this house. We needed like a summer, something just for the interim. We found this place. This guy had investors. He owned this place that he was trying to turn into a nursing home or an elderly home. Needed to rent it just for the summer, and we needed something just for the summer. So we had gone and met him. We found it on Craigslist.
Sure you did.
And I went and met him.
She finds everything on Craigslist, I tell you what.
Works perfect. Pay this much, and we'll be there, through August.
The girl buys mattresses on Craigslist. The girl rents houses on Craigslist. Hey, you still selling that dress? I want to come by and take a look. Hey, are you still selling those size 8 shoes? Let me come by and take a look. Girl,
However long.
you want to think somebody has a shopping problem? This girl has a Goodwill Craigslist shopping problem.
We needed something. And so in the meantime, we live downstairs in this 9-bedroom kind of horseshoe house, and his office is upstairs. You go upstairs and it's like this kind of entity of its own, has its own kitchen, room, office, bedroom, bathroom, everything that he would rent out as well, but we didn't need it, so he continued to use it as his office.
Did he have a separate entrance?
He did have separate entrance outside, but there was also an entrance inside. Separate entrance outside, but there was all, everything was good for a couple months till we started getting the mail and noticing that he was getting a lot of past due bills. We would put under the door, a lot of past due bills. And so after probably 2 to 3 months, we didn't stay there too long. I don't think we were there any longer than 6 months. I have to look back and look at my bills, but he started, when we signed a contract, we signed it for a certain amount, and he realized, let me think how this went. So bills started coming in. I don't remember why. Oh, because I remember he flunked he was trying to become the manager or owner of this caretaking place. And at some point,
Is there anybody else staying besides
no,
you?
just us.
Okay.
Yep, just us 6. I remember at some point him wanting to, as things were going bad for him, he started saying, I want you to start paying some of these bills.
Why would you pay these bills?
That's what we said. That wasn't our agreement. It wasn't, we actually had an agreement, we had signed.
What kind of bills do you want you to pay?
Like he's like, I want, like the utilities or we had just a set fixed. And then he was like, I don't remember why. I remember us thinking, why is he expecting us to pay this? This was never our agreement. But things started going south for him, and he couldn't pay his bills. And so he's like, I think you should pay this bill. And as we were saying no, we were also in a bind because we had found a house, but we needed another month. And he's like, well, I'm not going to let you stay longer unless you pay these bills. And we were like, but that was never the agreement. So in the end, by the time we said, okay, here's our 2-week notice, 4-week notice, whatever we gave, and I actually kept the paperwork. He said, you're to be out on this date.
The Drakes live like gypsies, it sounds like.
By the time we got out, we cleaned that place up and down, not one thing. Oh, and within the last month, so this side of the house never touched. We just kept our things in storage. We lived on this side. We noticed that there was a bubble coming up on some of the piping underneath because this place had had a ton of problems. He had tried to renovate a lot of it. And we had warned him, said, something's happening. We don't use this bathroom, but just so you know, I think there's something in the basement or in the whatever. Didn't answer, didn't do anything about it. Long story short, in the end,
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys think that Claus here, Hawes, whatever, do you think that he was interviewed by the police? No. Someone tells you about child porn. And then he came over, gave him $1,000. Shows up out of the blue.
he had put down our deposit and he replied back and said, you don't get any of it. I'm not giving it back to you. And we were like, we even had the neighbor come over before we moved out. The day we went to move out, we had him look through the whole thing just to be a witness. We took pictures. They got tons of pictures to make sure that there was pictures of everything that was done immaculate. Everything was in working order. Everything was great. And so when he would not give us our deposit back, you owed us like $2,800. And the lawyer sent the initial letter and he replied back, I have all the documentation. And that was when Brian and I sat down, and I know this may sound weird, but we really did pray about it. We're like, is this worth it? Is this worth going into?
Who was the lawyer?
It was one of his patients, Dan and Stacy Rodriguez.
Dan Rodriguez.
Dan, I think it's Dan. Is it Dan? See it there.
I'm sorry.
Dan Rodriguez is the freaking prosecutor for and in Bonner County. Dan Rodriguez. So you're saying Dan Rodriguez was your attorney?
Hello?
I think it's Dan. I'm trying to make sure her name is Stacy. I'm getting his patients.
He's a prosecutor in Sandpoint.
Yes.
Yeah, we know Dan.
Okay. So he's the one who did the first letter. We went out to lunch with them, and they're fellow Christians, and we just said, is this really worth pursuing? Do we let this go? Do we really go to court over this? And we did. We let it go. We ended up just not replying. I kept everything in a little envelope just because it's it's really hard for me because this man, we did so right by him and he just totally screwed us over.
So you didn't win a court judgment where he had to pay you like $5,000 or $6,000?
Oh, no. No, we got nothing.
We've heard this story, but it had a different ending. That's why we ask.
By who?
The ending, I don't even recall. One of your friends or one of your family members on one of the sides said that, hey, there could be this guy because I think they sued him and they won like a big judgment against him and he might have something against him.
We never took it. We let him totally go. But there were words. I mean, Brian definitely, he had words over the phone.
How did a prosecutor write a letter on your behalf? A prosecutor can't be your attorney. They're a prosecutor.
And we emailed.
So look at how connected Brian Drake was. Caleb Watts was his patient. He was a police officer in Bonners Ferry. EMS, Michaela Burt, his patient. Now, a prosecutor in Sandpoint, his patient. Ooh.
I brought those back up. But I still have the manila envelope that has everything in it, to where we literally just didn't reply, because he had his lawyer send the letter,
Okay.
and we just stopped him.
Okay.
But no, we did not get anything.
Okay. What else?
I think that is pretty much all. I just wanted to make sure that
So why would you bring this man up? Why
My
are we
mom brought
talking
it
about Your mom brought it up?
yeah, she's like, did you ever, I didn't even think about it. And my mom,
Your mom brought it up?
yeah, she's like, did you ever, I didn't even think
Or
about it.
threats exchanged?
And when we left, after that last letter that we never replied to, and we dropped it with Dan, we said to Dan, we're just gonna drop it. We never had contact again.
Do you remember the address of the house? How old about was Josh Whitaker?
I'd say probably 34, 35
Today or then?
then. And he had just gotten divorced. He was dating a girl. He had gone through a horrible divorce. He was a mess. He was not so mess.
Everyone's a master.
This was before you moved into Salmonberry?
Yes,
And when did you move into Salmonberry?
December of 2000. We've been in there 2 years as of December. So 2018. Yeah.
It's a really weird time to move, December. Nobody wants to move in December. Buy a house in December.
What do you look like?
Dark hair. Average, shorter than Brian. I'm bad for that. I guess nothing particular about him. We have straight hair.
Why are you asking what do you look like? What the fuck? Get on Facebook, bitch.
All right, so again,
All right, here we go. Let's get into the good shit.
I'm gonna ask some questions and go into some areas that you may feel uncomfortable about. There are things that have come up in the investigation that we think there may be a motive there that we need to look at.
Okay.
So, alcohol issues with Brian.
Yes.
It's been brought up that maybe he was attending AA meetings. Do you know about that?
So when he started drinking with his back, about August. Remember when I told you how he started drinking?
Yeah, and I wanted to see if I could kind of nail down that timeline a little bit too.
Who told?
When did he have the back surgery? Do you remember?
I think it was August 22nd. I can always text you those definites because I have them written down at home. Medical bills from that. So
Hold on.
Did he work?
Wait. You have it written down when your husband started attending AA? Okay, or medical, but like what? You just have it written down somewhere? Just like on the fridge? Hey, Dad's in AA?
Right up to the back surgery?
No, probably he got hurt and they gave him injections and he could work for maybe another week or so, and then they moved his back surgery all the way up because it was so bad. So
One of his doctors say that he had to dry out before they would go into surgery.
No.
They had to lay off the alcohol for a while before they do the surgery.
No, that he had to get off of the ibuprofen before they go to surgery. He was bleeding internally because he was taking fatigue and ibuprofen for like a year, if not longer. So they were saying you have to get off the ibuprofen.
This is not true.
And not do surgery.
The IBs.
Okay, so what the accident that sort of maybe was we heard that the back problems have been going on for a long time, that he had back issues for a while.
He had back issues. This pain started about 2 years before his actual surgery, but it didn't stop him from anything.
Is that when the paddleboard accident happened?
No, the paddleboard happened like a month before his surgery.
Not really exacerbated.
It was like June or July.
Okay.
And that was the point where it all fell apart. And he was using even more ibuprofen. It's when he was drinking more. Then, of course, he had given him pain meds. So I was like, you have to go, even if it's going to AA. We had a counselor in Texas who was so good, and he used to tell Brian, you should go to AA for no reason other than because he just had a very addictive personality. He's like, you should go to AA for no reason other than to see what it is, and if you don't get your stuff in here, this is what you could end up to be like. So at that point, I said, Brian, even if you just got into AA once a week, get in and get some accountability. He was only in town once a week. I didn't care who saw him. He didn't care who saw him.
So did he go to your knowledge, he went to AA meetings in Bonners Ferry?
No, he went in Hayden on Wednesdays. No, I take that back. It wasn't Hayden because I kept asking, why don't you go in Hayden? It was because they didn't meet on Wednesdays. And I would sit there and watch him. I know he went to them. It was in Coeur d'Alene. It was Coeur d'Alene chapter. It had anywhere from 40 to 50. Sometimes it was like a bigger chapter.
Where did they meet?
And they met, it was like on 4th Street. I could probably scroll through his texts. That would be months, but I remember him sending me the address of what it was, and I would see that he went. And then he would tell me.
360.
And he'd be there. He'd stay there for an hour or so, and
He was at the bar, you
he did that
dumbass.
almost every Wednesday for a while.
Was this the one off of Best Avenue next to what used to be Lyle's fabric store?
I
Back
think so.
behind where all those little food trucks are?
I think so. I haven't been there, but Best Avenue sounds right.
It's an Appleway turns into
I would
Best
watch
when
him
she
go there on the
comes
Lake
forward.
360 app. You guys hear that? I was monitoring
So
him.
he went for a while until, not for too long, I would say maybe 1 to 2 months, and then he had his surgery. And once he had his surgery, he was completely off the alcohol, but that's when I realized how bad it was because he was shaking, because he was off of that, he was on meds.
He was shaking.
And even he said, I just didn't realize how bad he was drinking in order to get through that pain.
Right.
And now Bubba tells me, he and I had this conversation this last week, and he's like, he was drinking a lot more than you know, and because he said that we went on this New York trip. I was with Brian 24/7, and I looked at him and I was like, that is not true.
Yeah.
I was with him the whole time. I was a huge talker. He's like, I'm telling you, he was swinging while he turned around. I'm like,
Well,
I have a hard time believing that.
you're his wife. I mean, you probably knew him better than anybody else. You spent the most time with him. I get that.
Yeah,
But there was a lot of his friends and family who all said that he was
drank.
constantly.
Yeah, but all his friends and family,
Like
so his
water
family,
bottles.
yeah. He hasn't spoken to for almost 8 years. So the fact that they sat in here and talked with you really blows my mind because they know so little about him.
Oh my God, Jennifer just takes shots at her mother and father-in-law and her, oh my gosh, her brother-in-law What? Well, it's right. They're going to come in here and sit here and tell you anything about Brian. They haven't talked to him in 8 years. Whoops.
Besides your family and his family.
Well, Matt and Emily do know that.
So,
I'd say Matt and Emily know that.
so just looking at some of the conversations he's had with some of his friends and then putting things together, it seems like he is sort of just to get so he's normal. He's consuming alcohol like vodka. He's normal. He's consuming alcohol like vodka. He's normal. He's consuming alcohol and then kind of maintaining just a low level so he can just kind of get through the day. Do you?
How would I not know that?
What are you talking? Where did you get this information from? Nobody said this. Not a single person said this to you, Van Leuven. That he would just maintain a low level just to get through the day. Every single patient that you interviewed said that they've never smelled alcohol on Brian. So why don't you cough it up, Daddy? What's up, Van Leuven Poovy? We'll squeeze you like a little bear thing.
Like, that doesn't make sense to me, because when he's home, he's home. Like, he's literally present in front of us. He's not in this room. He doesn't have a secret.
Listen, I don't care if the man drinks. That's not our concern. Our concern is to focus on who might have had a motive for murdering him. So, do you know one of his friends said that his routine up in Bonner's Ferry, that one of it was that after he saw patients, he would eat a small amount of food, and then he would go to the gym and work out, and then after the gym he would eat a bigger meal,
Yes.
and then sometimes he would go to a bar and have a drink before coming back to the office and going to bed.
Okay, so that I didn't know.
Okay.
So everything you said just now is true, and that he would eat a little.
Mhm.
He would go work out, because
Yeah.
he never worked out on a full stomach. Then he would eat some more,
Mhm.
and then usually he would vacuum and do all his stuff, and then he'd go to bed. And I would see it on Life 360. Like, he's been doing this for years. I would see if he had left. And again, every time I would call him, we would talk before bed. Every time he was gone. I mean, rarely did we ever fail. So it's not like his phone wasn't with him. Like, I would get it if he had left his 360 there to try to hide that from me.
Oh, would you, honey? No, because Brian learned how to disable that shit, boo. Let me tell you something. Jennifer Drake, in the middle of the night at 10:30 at night, 10 p.m., she calls up their friend Dan and texts him and says, oh my God, Brian's missing. Brian's missing. Brian's missing. Oh my God, what do I do? He's missing. That would like freak you out, right? Like a year and a half before his murder, she tells he's missing.
But I never would try to call him and he wouldn't answer.
Was there a particular restaurant that he would go to? We know he went to Yoder's Market, and we know he went to Two Tone, and we know he went to the delis.
Why are you telling her this? What is wrong with you?
Yeah, and he took me once to, what's that one across the street? It's a restaurant, but they didn't seem to know him, like even when we went.
Two Tones?
Is that the one? It has the outside patio or the outside underneath all the trees?
It's kind of like a red house. It's kind of down the road from his office, south on the other side of the road, about a block.
Yeah, 2 tons.
Yeah.
Okay, so he would, 2 tons.
Yeah.
Went, they didn't really seem to know him.
How many times would you go eat with him?
The owner, Tony, was a freaking patient of Dr. Drake's. Then nobody really knew him. The owner of Two Tones, a patient of Brian Drake's.
Oh, not very often. Once every 6 months.
Okay.
Once every 6
I'd be up there maybe once every 4 months. Sometimes the kids would come up. We'd spend a day while they saw patients, and we'd go hiking. And then
She said, well, they saw patients. They saw patients. Who's they? It's really awkward to say it like that. Well, he saw patients while they saw patients.
came with them afterwards.
Okay. So the surgery was when?
I think it was August 22nd. And then he was out for, it was like 7 weeks.
No working for 7
No.
weeks.
And then, so listen to this. This is when all the PayPal money starts coming in. He has a surgery, and at the end of September, Jennifer Drake starts receiving thousands unaccounted for. 50 to 75 strangers just sending her anywhere between $330 to $544 per transaction.
Or he was on his back. That's what I mean by he was in the house that entire time, and I was able to see everything he drank.
What were you doing?
And he was on pain meds, and I'm really sensitive to that. I would be like,
So you had no money coming in, did you, Jennifer? Freaking the fuck out, didn't you, Jennifer? Like, how the fuck are we supposed to pay anything? We have no income.
We don't even drink wine.
We don't even drink wine.
We were told
You asked Brian to pick you up wine in text messages on just a random night.
that he didn't really do very well on the pain meds. That he didn't like the way that he felt when he was on them, and it really made him knocked him out. He was trying to not take those and look for alternatives to pain meds. Is that your experience?
That's true. With his back pain especially, because they would really make him really drowsy in the evenings. Like, I had no problem getting him off the pain meds.
Okay.
Like, if I would just say, are you able to cope without him? I just felt like it was another vice that I wanted to make sure we didn't have to tackle.
So back to work sometime in October?
Yep. It's even on our calendar.
And then when did he injure his leg?
Yeah, when was that, Jennifer?
So Brian's, I was trying to see if I had on here, actually, the exact dates for you guys. I don't.
She's buying herself time with this question.
Gosh, I just looked at all these dates this morning, you guys.
I bet you did,
I
huh?
mean, all these medical bills that apparently in the state of Idaho are now all my responsibility.
Medical bills, interesting.
February, I want to say February 10th. It was a Tuesday though, right? Maybe 11th?
February 10th, I believe, was the day that he got surgery on his leg, ankle.
Okay, so then it must have been, it was either a Tuesday or Thursday, so maybe the 4th?
So several days passed between the injury and the surgery?
Yes, we went straight in the next day into the daycare, the day surgery or whatever, and they couldn't get him in because we really wanted to try and get in on Friday, and they couldn't, so they made us wait till Monday. So he literally had to lay there.
Oh, so you do know that it was a
on
Thursday.
pillow. And again, this is why I am struggling to figure this out because
See, she just slipped up. She's like, was it a Tuesday or was it a Thursday? So she just rips it out there, just like, yeah, we really want to get on a Friday. You did, but you got it on a Friday. You went.
With both of these injuries, he was home so much, not even being able to move. And there was no alcohol, and he wasn't like freaking out. So for them to all sit there and say that he was so bad on alcohol,
They didn't say he was so bad. They just said that
but it was so present.
he was
And I
present.
know he's a big guy, so I know that he could have a lot without being able for it to affect him. I think more of this is me trying to wrap my brain around the fact that there was a problem and I didn't know.
Don't worry about it. Listen, nobody knows anybody else 100%. So it's
Was it a man
people
living?
struggle with different things in their lives that they don't necessarily want someone to.
It's right in front of your face, you fuck. You can't even see, man. You're like going back and like listening to this. Like, does he think to himself, wow, we really just yeah. Rich Alderson, he was a pastor. Rich Alderson was one of his detectives. Rich Alderson was a pastor at a different church. Can you believe that? Rich Alderson, who's ISP, is also a pastor. Interesting to me. Like, who has the time?
To know about, so that's okay.
That's true.
So 4 days before, so like 2-6 maybe.
Yeah, I may even say the 4th because I remember us, well, maybe it was the 6th.
What a moron.
No, I think it was the 4th. We went in on the 5th.
Okay.
And then we were hoping they would get him in by Friday, and they couldn't. So I think it was the 4th.
Okay.
But again, I can text you when I get back because I have all that on paper.
So this idea sort of started with your brother-in-law, and then we've sort of reached out and talked to some other people. They say the type of leg injury he had, where you have a they say the type of leg injury or push is very almost impossible to get from slipping on the ice.
Yeah, let's
unless
talk
your
about that.
foot gets wedged somewhere, and then there's a strong torsional movement of twisting.
Yeah.
And then a push before he goes down. So did he describe that injury to you?
Yeah. So he, many years ago, in fact, with my family, he actually sprained that ankle, almost broke it playing basketball. Since then, he has sprained it several times. So his right ankle has always been weak. So much so that when he did hurt it that first time, it was so, swollen, huge. He thought he had broken it. It's never been the same. He has had problems with his right ankle for years. So that's why I'm surprised Matt said that, just because I think he was there when he heard it, and he's twisted it several times since. And he called me immediately after it happened.
Breaking news. Jennifer Drake is friends on Facebook with none other than the kitty porn holder, Claus Hawes, Hawes. Friends on Facebook. Boom. Why would you be friends on Facebook with this perv, this kitty porn pusher, if you wanted nothing to do with him? What?
It was literally the time that he would have been finishing up to come home.
Mhm.
And he said, I think I just broke my ankle. And he said, I'm in the car now. I said, do I need to come get you? And he said, I'm going to try to drive home, but it is in so much pain, and I'm sure. And he explained it. I said, what happened? I was walking out of the office, slipped on the ice. It came right underneath me. I was walking out of the office, slipped on the ice. It came right underneath me. And he was carrying two really huge things. So he had his huge office table, and he had this, that big bin of files. And just the way, the weight of all that, I think, crushed. And as he told me, he showed me how it just crumbled right under him with the table right over it. So
you don't have
we'll
any
never
concerns
know.
about?
I don't. For everything he told me.
Breaking news. The person that owned that building, Wemmy had cameras. The cameras did not catch this slip and fall. Wemmy's owned the building where he rented. The cameras did not catch the slip and fall. And then the Drakes sued Wemmy, or went after the, insurance, whatever, for $5,000. They were denied right before Brian was murdered. Then, after Brian was murdered, Wemmy just said, give him the $5,000 on the insurance because he's murdered, and felt bad for the family. But there was no evidence of this slip and fall with the cameras.
The timing, every bit of it. Again, I may be completely this naive wife.
If he had had a problem with someone and someone had hurt him,
Yeah.
do you think that he would tell you that? Or do you think he would try to protect you by concealing that?
I think he would tell me, but I also think through that was his standpoint day, and they all saw him at the office. So that's an office that a lot of people come in and out, like even other people that are the insurance agents.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody.
What if it didn't happen on that day, Jennifer? What if it didn't happen on that day? You understand that? You understand that question now? What if your little incident didn't happen on that day? It happened on a different day, but you had to make it happen at that place so you could sue for the $5,000 because you're nothing but scammers. That's what I believe. And I got a little ace up my sleeve as to why.
Yeah, like somebody would have, you know what I mean? Like Garth
Wemmy.
people.
Garth Wemmy is the guy. Yep, he was patient of Brian Drake's. All you did was scam people, man. You are nothing but a scammer. Trash.
All pulled office work there every day. So it's not like
Brian left at what time? What do you mean? They didn't work there. Garth owned the building. You think he watched your husband 24/7 like you've monitored him on Life 360, Jennifer? No. Absolutely unbelievable.
He's the only one in the office and nobody would have seen something happen.
Did you look at Life 360 to see if he was anywhere else that day?
I didn't.
Van Leuven right there. Red flag that maybe, just a tad.
Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we? I actually forgot to look at that.
I would like to get that, and maybe a search warrant to Life 360 is an easier way to do it, but I need to preserve as much of that as possible, showing his movements, because it looks like he had his Google locator turned off on his phone, so that information is not available on his phone from Google.
Well, we should do that. Didn't you say after a month you can't do that or something? So we should do that really fast, right?
Well, I said that the app seems to suggest that we can get 30 days of it, but then you said you already have access to it.
Well, on mine, yeah.
Yeah, why didn't you go and get hers, Van Leuven? The only one after Brian's, but you just gave up a nice little nugget, didn't you? What was that little nugget you just said? His Google seemed to be turned off. Are you sure about that?
To do that, didn't you say after a month you can't do that or something? So we should do that really fast, right?
Well, I said that the app seems to suggest that we can get 30 days of it, but then you said you already have access to it.
Well, on mine, yeah. It's not like he's the only one in the office and nobody would have seen something happen.
Did you look at Life 360 to see if he was anywhere else that day?
I didn't. And yet, we talked about that, didn't we? I actually forgot to look at that.
I would like to get that, and maybe a search warrant to Life 360 is an easier way to do it, but I need to preserve as much of that as possible, showing his movements, because it looks like he had his Google locator turned off on his phone, so that information is not available on his phone from Google.
Well, we should do that. Didn't you say after a month you can't do that or something? So we should do that really.
Do you see how she didn't even flinch with that? Like, wait, what do you mean his Google locations were turned off? That's how dumb she is, too. But that wouldn't be true, would it be? What it was that Van Leuven could be.
Fast, right?
Well,
Brian didn't have his Google locations turned off.
I said that the app seems to suggest that we can get 30 days of it, but then you said you already have access to it.
Well, on mine, yeah.
Yeah.
And I still have it right here, but it says weekly driving summary. Oh, you're right. You said you had to see. I had you. It says no network or phone off since March 18th. So now it's not letting me get it. But like, see if this is
So right there, she tells them. Now this is where she lies. March 18th is when it said it was taken off the network because it was put into airplane mode on. Those idiots. But it says March 18th, so they were like in his phone all the way up until March 18th. They're gonna have to answer that, okay? But I want to show you guys something about this huge lie that she tells, because I'm just on it.
here's the sun.
I have it. Our family uses it. I know how it works, but
Why is it not getting no weekly report? Yeah, no, it's making me.
okay, we'll get to that.
You should have let her continue because she was going somewhere. Let her talk.
So after the February 10th surgery, how long was he off work?
Until
Just like a week and a half.
February 10th. I think he went back to work. They said to stay off of it. They recommended for 2 weeks. And I want to say he tried to see patients here, just a couple of them on 19th, Wednesday the 19th.
February 19th?
February 19th. Like a week and a half later, he had gotten that prosthesis piece And he started like even around the house. He went and saw like maybe 3 or 4 and realized this is going to be challenging. I'm going to have to take this slow. And then he took those 2 days off that I remember, and he started his first full week of patients February 24th.
How are you able to afford your bills?
Okay, so the practice in Sandpoint, where was the office before the current office?
It was the Sandpoint Family Medicine, and it was in the basement.
Remember the road that was off of?
It's that is it Main Street? Like when you come off of the highway and you come down and you go around. Sandpoint. You guys, I know this is so hard, but I don't know. It's called Sandpoint Family Medicine and Urgent Care, and it's 302 South First Avenue in Sandpoint. And he rented there for years. Just they have a whole basement, they had a room, and he just made it into a, and they had their own entrance.
And then when did they decide they were going to renovate or whatever?
During the holidays. So between Christmas and New Year's, Brian had taken it off. It was between Christmas and New Year's, and he had gotten a text from them. And all it said was, we're going to renovate the basement.
That's not true. He doesn't take those weeks off. What a
We're
liar.
putting in a whole new medical group. And
He works all the way up until the 24th. So he works on the 23rd. Okay. And
whoever's renting down here, we're asking them to leave. And, you know, he had been renting for years, but never really signed a contract. They just let him, so he didn't have any reason to.
Did they offer him space?
yeah, so when did he move into that new building in Wimmy's building?
Somewhere else, or?
Yeah.
No.
That's when he was considering, should I just leave Sandpoint? And he had several patients step up and go, no, I have an office, or I have an office, or.
Okay, so then he went from there, he went to where?
He went to this one.
506 Alder Street?
Is that the
That's the address.
Insurance?
That's the address you sent me, the
Yeah.
insurance office.
insurance? Yeah.
And when did he start that practice then?
It must have been within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, when was that?
Because I think he went to one other place just for the week. It was like and I don't know where it was. I remember him saying there's a couple offices. I was like, so you're just gonna make your patients like guess which week you're gonna be where? And then that's when he said, nope, this Garth is actually gonna let me stay here. But I know there was one in between, and I don't know where that was.
Garth, that's the landlord?
Yes.
Is that also a patient?
Yes.
Okay, what's Garth's last name?
Oh, what did I know? Sorry, because we've been texting.
Did you go to that office?
I did.
Did he have anything there? Any records or anything?
No records, but he had like all of his like office. I had another chair and a stool and all that stuff.
She went to his Sandpoint office, you guys. The day of the murders is 3:12, okay, at night. She called up Garth Wimmy the very next morning. One of her first calls besides the insurance company to get the mill, okay? She calls up Garth Wimmy, tracking him down to be able to get into Brian's office and clear out and get everything out of there. And you hear what he just asked there? He asked about patient files. You want to know why? Because there's patient files are missing. All of them that matter in this case. Who thinks to themselves to go call in the first thing in the morning, like you just saw, your husband was murdered at 3:12 at night. 3:13 at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, you're calling Garth Wimmy to get into the Sandpoint office to get everything out of there. And then you took, I understand that was during COVID, or just the start of it, but you didn't believe in COVID, remember? And you're a huge Trump supporter. Remember, Jennifer? You love Trump and you hate liberals and you couldn't believe that all this coronavirus and all these pussies, right? And you took wipes with you and you wiped down Drake's whole entire office. Remember that?
But I talked to him and his wife, and I don't have his last name. I have it in here. It's Garth.
Garth.
Do you have a phone number?
Yes. It is. Sorry. 208-290. Oh, 9595.
One more time, 208.
Oops.
Contact or anybody else that you know that attended those meetings with us?
I don't know if anybody went.
Do you know if he ever attended AA meetings anywhere else?
Yeah, he did 80 meetings down in Austin.
Did he do them in Bonners Ferry or in Sandpoint or in Montana or anything? No. Okay. The Southern Friends talked about the last trip you went on. There was discussion of him inappropriately texting a woman or women on social media, and that he was in trouble with you for that, and that you kind of talked to the wives about it. He kind of talked to the guys about it. You know what I'm talking about?
No, he doesn't even have social media.
Just telling you what they said.
I know.
It was like maybe instant messaging or texting or something, or maybe, I don't know what it was, but there was something.
You have a Facebook page that says Brian and Jennifer Drake. You're that couple that shares social media. What are you talking about?
About another woman or women, and that you found something on his phone, and you talked to their wives about it, and he talked to them about it in the hot tub, and they were kind of trying to hold him accountable for that.
Gosh, no. I
No,
don't know anything about that.
because they independently brought it up, so something had to have been said.
And they know that I knew?
Yeah, that you talked to at least one of the wives about it.
What wives did you talk to?
So I don't know whether this was him looking at something on the internet or browsing on the internet, or whether this was an actual communication with an actual person, or they just knew that and they didn't ask too many.
I know all of her friends and all these people listen and watch my channel. How are you guys okay with this woman lying to police? Who lies to police in a murder investigation?
Questions. They just knew that he felt like he was in the doghouse with you because you were just
texted, or he had been.
What we heard was that he messaged a woman or women using social media, and they didn't know whether you found out about it independently and caught him, or whether.
So then, Van Leuven, why didn't you go and get a Facebook warrant, a search warrant for Facebook, and get the Facebook messages? Wouldn't you do that? Did you do it? If you did, you didn't turn over to the defense. Brady.
He admitted to you that he did it. They didn't know that, but they just knew that you knew, and that he was in trouble for that.
Oh my gosh. I'm losing my mind.
Shut the fuck up, Jennifer.
I don't remember any of that.
I don't remember any of
Especially,
that.
it seems so odd because he's never on social media.
He's never on social media.
Literally, I've seen him post on social media twice.
How? Why don't you ask right there? How did he post on social media?
You know,
If he didn't have social media, why aren't you asking that right there, you stupid fox? ISP, idiots of the century. Oh, so he did post on social media. So he did have an account. What was his account? Get his account information. Then pull the records.
You don't remember. It's odd to me that they independently brought the same thing up and kind of had the same story to tell, though.
Well, they talk amongst themselves a lot, so I'm wondering if sometimes Bubba makes things up. He told me something else this week, and I was like, I know that's not true. He told me that he gave Brian some cash, and I looked at him and said, I know that's not true. He was like, oh yeah, I did. And I'm like,
Well,
he showed me the cash he gave me, like right after we left.
We'll get into that. I have lots of money questions. We'll get
You don't know the half of the money questions, motherfucker, because you didn't do your job.
into that. Okay, so it doesn't remember.
I am so sorry.
Sorry about what?
Well, we're just looking for motives here. So if he was contacting some gal
Yeah,
via social media,
and I
then
would like to
let's
know
know
about
who
it.
that is and figure that out. So
I would not withhold that one bit.
okay.
My husband definitely had the secret wars. I would not keep that from you. I don't remember any of that.
They said that was the 2019 trip. Do you remember people sitting in a hot tub?
Oh yeah,
No.
they were all talking about, and I remember them even praying in the hot tub.
Yeah, they said they prayed about it.
But I remember it wasn't about Brian. That's what's so funny.
What was?
Was there the discussion about somebody else doing this?
Yeah, well, not necessarily that. They were praying specifically about being accountable to all their wives, and one of them happens to be his friend Paul Lacoste, who happened to now leave his wife, and they're in the middle of this whole
Right.
praying thing. And so that's so weird that they said it was about.
Oh, Paul Lacoste. He wasn't interviewed. See how she's deflecting? She's taking it away. And Van Leeuwen's like, yeah, like, yeah,
But him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we've heard. I keep harping on this, and I don't mean to harp on it, but it bugs me. And I've got different answers from different people as to why they think he was spending the night at Barnes Ferry.
Okay.
And your answer is because he was seeing patients the next morning at Sandpoint?
I can tell you 100%. I'm the one who actually kept pushing that.
To spend the night there?
Yeah, because he would come home every night.
Yeah.
And he would get home at like 9.
Yeah.
He would leave at 5 the next morning in order to get back up there. Or actually, he'd be up at 5 in order to leave by 6.
Yeah.
To get back up there. And that was when I was finally like, let us just buy you a pull-out couch and just have a place. Because for a while, I was like, just stay at a hotel. And so he stayed at a hotel until I went up there and saw the hotel he was staying in. It was horrible. I was like, oh, this is horrid. Why don't we just get you a couch and you can just stay here? It was saving on gas. It was saving on time. He was driving so much. I didn't feel bad. And I was the one. There were many times he'd be like, I'll just come home tonight. I'll end up seeing the kids. And I can, oh, you have to leave. You're literally going to be home after they go to sleep. And you're going to leave before they get up. And so I always felt bad. I know 100% the reason that he was staying up there is because of my beckoning. And I mean, if he wanted to come home, it's not like I was against it. I was feeling so bad because he was driving so much. And
This was Brian's routine. He would get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning on Mondays and drive to Bonners Ferry. And Bonners Ferry from CDA is an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 40. But at the time that he would have been driving, there's going to be no traffic. And he's actually driving the opposite way to go out to Bonners Ferry. Okay. So, and then on Tuesdays, he would see patients in Sandpoint. Sandpoint is between Bonners Ferry and CDA. So what she means by that is that if he saw his last patient at 6 o'clock, left the office at 6:30, he would be home at 8. Then in the morning when he'd have to leave to go to Sandpoint, it would be like a 40-minute drive to go to Sandpoint in the morning. And so she's like, well, just spend the night in Bonners Ferry. Okay, is what she's saying. Spend the night in Bonners Ferry, and then just when you leave from there in the morning. But then this is what I was saying. why wouldn't you just head to Sandpoint that night? Okay, because who wants to stay in Bonner's Ferry? Head to Sandpoint and stay there that night. Wake up, you're right there. Okay. But who needs to travel all over to have patients?
I thought through this. I know people are thinking probably the most horrible things, because when you look at it from the outside, he's gone 4 days a week. He spends the night up there. I've known this for years, that people probably, even if our people that know him, are thinking, why does he do this?
Wait, what do you mean he spent the night up there for years? So he would normally stay up there just, in 2016, 2017, he was staying up there? Interesting.
It paid the bills. He never had to market. There were so many people who wanted him.
Were you trying to get him to step away from the Bonner's Ferry practice?
Yeah.
To not have to go up there?
Yeah.
But that's the only area that made money. Literally the only area of his business that he had patients was in Bonner's Ferry at the time of his murder. He had literally a handful of people that he saw in Sandpoint. And he saw nobody at the time in Hayden. Like, we're talking like on Wednesdays, he would see like 1 or 2 people.
And was that sort of your, discussions with Craig about trying to open some other business down here up and that whole thing?
So we opened Hayden, the Hayden office, maybe a year and a half ago. That's when we were just praying. I was like, honey, your kids are now getting old enough to where when you are spending the night, you're missing soccer games, they're at the age they need you more than they need me. And so we're like, let's start praying about opening this up. The problem is that because he was gone 4 days a week, he never had time to actually work on trying to grow Hayden. The other 2 practices literally grew overnight because everything was word of mouth. Everything. He didn't have to market. I mean, we marketed out the note.
Word of mouth?
Was in Austin. Here, it just grew organically, so easy and so fast, and people there was a hole that needed chiropractic up there, and that was why it was so hard for him to leave. It's like, my days are so full. It's not like they're starting to slow down to where they don't need me, and yet Hayden wasn't. I mean, Hayden has how many chiropractors? He knew he was going to have to start doing marketing. He was going to have to start going to do a show.
Bonner's Ferry had 7. Bonner's Ferry, at the time of the murder, guys, Bonner's Ferry had like anywhere between let's just go right around 7,000 people at max in Bonner's Ferry. Okay, and that's being generous to say there were 7,000 people. Then what's the percentage of the people that would have been, small kids? What's the percentage of that are old as fuck? Okay. And then in Bonner's Ferry, there's 7 chiropractors. You know how big Coeur d'Alene, Hayden, you know how big that area is?
And so it was easy for him to sit back and not work on this. But I was like, until you create this void and you step away from this, we're not going to have time to work on Hayden. So that was for the last year, just this desire to.
She's just gaslighting the fuck out of this man right now.
Get him back down. And so that's why Brian, even on this last New York trip, was talking to Bubba about, he's always wanted a wellness clinic and what that. So Bubba's like, I'll help you. And that's when I stepped in and said, please no, because I want us to learn to work harder. I mean, smarter, not harder. You're just going to make him work more. And he's getting older. He can't do this till he's 65. It's hard on him. So I was trying to think through other ways with which we could invest in something else.
Yeah, and what did you think of, honey? Do tell. Do tell. You guys listening to this? Work smarter, not harder.
So, business-wise,
Yeah.
why not go where the patients or the clients are? Why abandon the clients and try to build?
Because our home is here. Our kids go to an amazing charter school. Amazing. They have opportunities they don't get anywhere else. We love our church. Our kids are so involved in church. This is Brian and I. It's where all of our family, all our friends. I don't like Bonners Ferry. I mean, I just.
Family, they had no family in Hayden. None. Not a single blood relative. None. That's a lie. Okay, so because the charter school, the church, family, which again, there's no family there. They could say that their friends or their share from the church. And then wait for this. She just said, I don't like Bonners Ferry.
Okay.
You know.
I'm just saying the money tree's up there.
Yeah. And so that's why we were in this dilemma that just he was.
Hey, Bonners Ferry, listen up. Jennifer thought she was too good for your asses.
They don't get anywhere else. We love our church. Our kids are so involved in church. This with Brian and I. It's where all of our family, all our friends. I don't like Bonners Ferry. I mean, I just,
Okay.
you know.
I'm just saying the money tree's up there.
Yeah. And so that's why we were in this dilemma that just he was driving and it was totally supporting us. He helped a lot of people. Every time I would go up and we would go to, you know, their little fairs or people after people. Your husband is such a godsend. Your husband, and so I know he was loved and appreciated, and they all seemed like really down to earth, good people. Like even when they would come into town and we would get together. So I knew some of them, but I was not willing, and I don't think Brian was either. He's like, I don't want to live in Bonners Ferry. Our kids used to go to Christian school here for several years, so that was important to us, and they didn't have that up there. And then they moved to the charter school, and so they just are involved in a lot of things, and we weren't willing to actually give that up for Bonners Ferry.
I understand that.
So we were trying to connect those two by moving him out of there.
And so Bubba
We were trying to collect. Connect.
was willing to put money into this project?
Well, they just mentioned it. So there was no business plan. There was no, he was just like, I'll help you start a wellness clinic. You know, Brian's like, yeah, that sounds good. And I remember him coming to me saying, he said, and for me, I'm the business person. I'm thinking how much work, how much he's now going to have to work even more. Brian does not do well with stress, change.
She's the business person. I just have to hear that again. The fuck?
This was all going to land on me.
So he also mentioned franchises and maybe storage units and.
So I'm the one that came to Bubba about 2 months ago. We've been like for 6 months, and I did up a whole business plan saying, if you're willing to invest.
Didn't she just say that there was no business plan or anything like that? But now she just came up with a business plan.
I'm out of the place I can put some more time and effort into this. Let me do some business. I learned the world of storage units. And so we had been Marcoing about a month, several weeks.
Marco was an app, Marco Polo app or some shit like that. Did you guys go and get that information? Did you guys preserve the Marco Polo?
Right up until he died. And that was like the business plan. And Bub was like, this is not going to happen because the land is so expensive there. And he was freaking out going, are you living in Destin? Like, come up here and look at it. It's insane. It's growing so fast. This is the level at which we should do it. And he's like, no, why don't you go ahead and do, I'm opening up all these Subway shops, whatever the sub thing is. And it's like, for me, that's like the next step from hell. I can't work in it.
You don't have to work them to own them. Most
Well,
people I
it's
know that
true.
own a whole bunch of them.
Well, that's true, but he wants to own it and have us manage it. And I was like, no. Like, thinking of having teenagers coming in and out of this, that to me is a nightmare.
Well, right.
You know?
That's a whole other topic.
Kids are a nightmare to her.
If we need that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Bubba and you were planning this, not
Yeah,
Bubba and Brian.
Brian was on the Marcos with us, but he knew I was doing all the work. Like, I did the whole business plan. I'd sit there and ask Brian ideas, but I run all the chiropractic business. Brian sees the patients. I've always done the business side. He doesn't know anything
What's the business side of the chiropractic?
about taxes. He doesn't know anything about computer, the banking, anything. I did all that. So he was in on the Marcos. He would be the one I'd sit there and throw ideas off of, and what do you think of this? So he was in the know of it all. He just didn't do any of the paperwork stuff.
So Bubba says that he knows your finances because you provided your finances to him so he could look at them.
Yeah,
Is that
so
true?
no. So Brian, so even when he told me, he said something about Brian had come home and he had actually, or no, I walked into the house and they were talking business, and he said, I did end up telling Bubba that this is all we owe. He wanted to ask us, what do we owe? So he at least had a picture. So we didn't provide him with anything. Brian just told him over the phone, okay, we owe on our house, we owe on our 2 cars, and we owe on one credit card. And so he was like, oh, wow. And that is the whole landscape.
135.50. Hold on 1 second. Wow. She is delusional. Absolutely delusional. 1 credit card, 2 cars, and 1 house. No debt, according to Jennifer.
Of everything he knows. And I was even going to ask you, because he goes, let's talk about money the day before he left. Are you okay? And I said,
After
yeah.
the funeral.
After the funeral. He went to leave and he's like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I've got life insurance. He goes, I know, $1 million. And I said, how do you know that? And I was wondering if you guys told him. I can't imagine that you would.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that.
But I
part,
asked
but
him $1 million.
He did say he knew about your finances and all of this stuff because of the business plan that you guys were working on.
So the business plan that I have, that I still have, has nothing to do with our finances. The only thing he knew was that one minute conversation with Brian before I walked in, when Brian said, and our finances are easy. We literally owe on 4 things. I mean, they're all large things, but they're the house, the 2 cars, and 1 credit card. And so we're not deep. We didn't have a whole lot to tell him. So maybe that's what he meant by I know all of their finances.
So this is a professional businessman. This man has made, according to him, he has made a lot of money
He does make a very
doing
much money.
business deals.
Yes. And he works with FEMA, and he works with a lot of different things.
Okay, let me tell you something about Bubba. His name's Tim Faint. Okay? Tim Faint got himself in a world of heaping hot water. For like $300,000 for writing a bad check. Tim Faint was in a lineup, a 6-pack. Tim Faint. Yep, just like that. Faint. Let's go ahead, sweep around.
So,
Millions.
okay. So he's paying for your
Makes sense.
vacations.
Yes.
2 vacations in a row, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
And he spent all this money.
He paid for everything. Now, part of this was because his best friend, Mike, Brian's best friend, was dying. And I'm sure he told you all that. In fact, Mike died 4 days out. And I'm sure he told you all that. In fact, like even the New York trip was solely for Mike. It was everything Mike wanted to do. But yes, he makes very good money, but he talks a lot. So even when he said $1 million, and I said, how did you know that? He goes, Brian told me, and I thought, I know that's not true. 1, Brian doesn't talk about our money. 2, I don't know that Brian even remembers what he has. And 3, I don't think he would have told him.
I know it's not true. Is it because Brian didn't even know that there was life insurance policy on him? I know it's not true. I know that's not true. I know that's not true.
Now I could be wrong, but I don't know why he would have even asked, hey, do you have life insurance? You know what I mean? 4 months ago, in the middle of talking about all this stuff, why would he ask Brian if he had life insurance?
Well, if you're discussing trying to help out your friend financially and to put him and their family in a good financial position, that would definitely be one of the questions I would want to know is your family covered? Do you have life insurance? I mean, that seems reasonable to me. But
Okay, that just seemed odd to me, but
If you're gonna go into partnerships with somebody, you wanna make sure if they die, you're not left with bills. Does
Yeah,
that
that's
make
a good
sense?
thought.
You wanna make sure if they die.
so
Gary, are you? Now I know you dumb. You have an LLC. What are you talking about? What are you speaking about, sir? That you're left with the bills. If you're a very good businessman, then you would know how to set up a fucking business. You wouldn't go using PayPal to bring in random people that are sending money to you through PayPal and then elude the government of that money. I'm a business person, remember? I'm the business person. I do the finances.
what percentage of his patients pay with a card versus what percentage pay with cash?
I don't know about that.
I thought you were the business
I
person.
can tell you, I know I just got.
How do you actually not know that? That is the easiest thing to know.
Got a thing in the mail stating how much went on the card, like how much. But in person, I'd have to look at our taxes because then I can tell you exactly what came through the card and how much you paid.
Based on what I've seen, it looks like it's about 50-50 to me.
Okay.
Does that seem right to you?
Probably, yeah.
Wait, what did you
Which does
see?
come up with a new problem before I forget.
Wait, what did you see to gauge that? 141.37. Well, what you're telling me that you have something there. Okay, so how could you possibly do that? Did you pull financials?
Is it's dawning on me that I forgot that there, I know that we've talked about, there were some people who prepaid. And now I'm worried because I know that he probably owes money to some of these patients and I need to somehow get through his files to figure out who I need to pay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Make sure they get their money back because they didn't. Now I don't know how many, I don't know that there's that many that normally do it, but I need to.
Mm-hmm. Do they have, he seemed to communicate with his patients mostly by text.
Yeah.
We have had his phone turned off or in airplane mode rather.
Yeah.
For the most part, so we haven't received any new texts. I can turn it on and let everything come in and then make a list of those and send them to you if you'd like.
That'd be great. Maybe you might even, I don't know. It might be a good idea. The only people he didn't do by text are ones who just didn't text. It means they were older, longer sparing, they would always call.
Did he have an email that he gave out on his business cards that they might have to be able to send an email that you can access?
Yes, and I actually haven't looked at that.
So the three emails that we seem to find are drbdrake21@gmail.com. Familiar with that one?
Yes.
Drake Chiropractic of NI@gmail.com.
Yes.
And Drake Family of 6 @gmail.com.
Yeah, no. Yes, but no, his main one is. Oh yeah, that's on his card, isn't it? The Gmail is on his card.
These are on his phone, coming up as ones that he's entered in his phone and apps.
He has a Yahoo, drbdrake@yahoo.com. That's the one I have access to that is just pretty much, so it's his email from Texas. And it has almost all just trash because he's had it for so many years. It's stuff from the kids' school, but pretty much everything that had to do with the practice.
What apps was he using? He's just giving it to her. Jesus, fuck, man.
Was
That means you went to the Cellbrite.
Okay. So that's one of the things that that Craig talked about, and to be honest with you, there's a text conversation.
Oh, it's Craig Timothy Faint. That's right. I'm sorry. Craig Timothy, I think, Faint, like that. Not Timothy Faint. So check that out. Put in Mississippi. Put in fraud. See what pops up.
Between your husband and Craig, where your husband is thanking him for the money.
So
So
4,000,
no,
not 10. Did you say 10,000 on it?
he says thank you for the 6,000. He says I'm only going to tell my wife about 4,000 of it, and I'll explain why later.
And he did say that on a text.
And then he says to me
He
later,
say that on a text.
another 4,000. So I gave him a total.
Given him 4,000, did you mail it?
I don't know. He didn't say it. He just said I did give him a total of 10,000, and he said he told me that he was making between 8,000 and 10,000 a week. And he goes, "Do you think that's right?" And so I just kind of did some rough calculus of what I think he was.
8,000 to 10,000 a week. Oh my God.
Probably making a week, and I think he's probably making between 6 and 8 a week. Looking at
Yeah,
a full
depending on
week.
whether he did a full week, but he did 10,000
Some weeks, sometimes.
weeks, yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that for a North Idaho income, he's making between 150 and 200,000 a year.
Van Leuven, where are you getting these numbers from? That dude never, ever, ever made more than $5,000 a week. Never.
No, so pretty generally, he's making right about 120,000 a year. On almost all of my, and I have it down to the penny, I keep it. So now that's, maybe he's making more and I don't know it.
Well, we're gonna base at this point in our investigation. We're gonna figure out what happened. So one of the things we're gonna turn towards your finances.
Why didn't you?
And we're gonna look at how much. We're gonna go back at every client for the last year, look at exactly how much money he should have brought in, or at least real close, and then look at all the expenses and look where the money went and see if there's a discrepancy in there somewhere.
Okay.
And we'll have a financial accountant do that for us.
And I can tell you, you didn't do any of that shit. If you did, where is it? Give it to Dan Moore.
I'd like
Brady.
access to your bank records and credit card records and tax records.
Then go fucking file goddamn search warrants.
To me, we can get them through legal means, but it would be easier if you just provided them.
Totally fine with that.
Okay.
I don't have bank statements because everything is online.
Okay.
So I don't know how do you do
Just
that?
online.
Are you? Look at how she's playing so stupid for them. I just do everything online. How would I get my bank statements? You print them the fuck off. I thought you were the business person. You don't know what online banking is in 2020? Who is believing this shit? Not I, said the fly.
You can just
Just give you the
you can even just I don't know, which bank do you bank at?
P1FCU.
How many? You have more banks than that.
So I bank at U.S. Bank. There's a
What about Chase? What about Wells Fargo?
feature on the banking app where you can download
All the
on
statements.
spreadsheets, or like on an Excel file.
Oh.
You can do the statements too, but sometimes the Excel files are easier for us to use.
Okay.
So if you can just download them for the last year,
Yeah.
Something like that.
And you want them specifically on
He wants a year's worth. And what'd you give him? 3-4 months, right?
Excel.
If that's possible, that would be easier
Okay.
to take a look at, because they're just going to convert them to an Excel spreadsheet in the end if they're actual statements.
And you want the last year?
Yeah, well, maybe go back to like January 2019 to up through March of
Okay.
2020.
Okay.
But she didn't give that all to you, so why don't you go get a fucking search warrant? Sick.
We heard from one of his friends that he was spending a lot of money on, how do I say this? It was claimed that he sort of said, hey, aren't you going to get in trouble with your wife for spending money on this? And his response was that he was in a cash business, so he would be able to have cash to spend on things that you wouldn't know about.
And what was it he was buying?
He was drinking. They were out drinking. And
He
so-
was in Vegas. He was in Vegas with freaking, like, Brian was with females.
So my question is that do you think, is there some, our minds go to all kinds of things. Did he have another life? You know, was there something else that was going on?
Why is it so hard for you to question this broad Van Leeuwen?
Did he have an apartment? Several people talked about, I think they just assumed this, that he had an apartment in Sandpoint or he rented a room. We found no evidence that that's true.
Yeah.
And the office mate, Kit Hartman's mother-in-law who does the books, she would get there early in the morning sometimes, and she says his car was always there.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's not like he was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Probably also uncomfortable, but I got to tell you, we're just looking for something. We don't have any evidence that your husband did anything wrong.
Yeah.
But we hope there's a motive. So perversely, we're wanting some reason for someone to want to kill him, so we can follow that trail.
Yeah, I get it.
So anyway, that's kind of where we're going.
Why didn't you look at the wife?
I don't know why he would not want you to know about $2,000 and a $6,000 gift. What was the reason? Was he paying somebody back he didn't want you to know about? Was he? I don't know what that was around that time period.
It's really hard too because he's not somebody who buys toys. Like he doesn't, everything he does is with the family.
Right.
He's very easy to please. Like he just is not high maintenance with that. I mean, knowing that he had that cash makes me really, really.
Did he give you a gift or buy you something or buy his family something or pay for something shortly after that trip that was a surprise?
That was in that was last August. There are times you would, like maybe Christmas, you have a necklace or something, but our love language never big on gifts. We just weren't real extravagant.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I didn't think.
No, he needed the money to pay his bills because he wasn't working. I mean, does Van Leeuwen not understand this? He got the money in August of 2019. What happened in August of 2019, Van Leeuwen? Where's your brains? It's right there. He wasn't working. Brian Drake wasn't working. He had surgery, you fat fuck. You just went over this with her an hour ago. He gave him the $10,000 to pay his bills each month, pay his mortgage, pay his electricity. Because how can one pay those bills if you are not working? Brian Drake wasn't in a salary business where he could, I have insurance to cover this, surgery, and then I also have time off, and I'm still getting a paycheck. He got the money after going on that trip in July. Listening to this, and then people out there could be like, no, he's just playing her right now. He's just playing. No, he's not playing her right now. Okay?
Gifts himself. I mean, unless he's giving it to somebody else or giving it to another woman or.
Oh, we don't.
What'd she say right there? Giving it to another woman? Unless he's giving it to like another woman or something else. Why wouldn't it click into Jennifer to say, well, he probably needed that money to pay our bills? Because then it would do what, guys? It would give an alert of what? Red flags are going off that they have money problems. There's a problem. It's a money problem thing. Okay? Brian is unemployable. Why? Because Brian is hurt.
Well, I know, but my brain's going there too.
Listen to what he says right here.
accept whatever
Then he
it
tries
is
to
that's
reassure
there.
her of this bullshit. Well, I don't know, maybe unless he's giving it to another woman. Unreal.
So no, even the kids himself. I mean, unless he's giving it to somebody else or giving it to another woman or.
Oh, we don't.
Well, I know, but my brain's going there too. I will accept whatever it is that's there if it will lead us to answers. He's never given me any reason to think that he was spending money unless it was he does know how I feel about drinking. And I'm probably.
He didn't spend $10,000 on drinking alcohol when he was buying $8 bottles of Burnett's vodka.
Even more of a Nazi, so just because I don't like it at the house, especially with the kids. And so maybe it was just to have cash in order to drink with them.
But he's got cash every day. People
He
are giving him
does.
cash.
And I never know how much he brings home. Like I never
See, Van Leeuwen, you're stupid. What do you mean he's got cash every day coming home? No, he doesn't. Not if you're not working. He didn't work from the end of August 22nd, until the end of October. All of September and that is 2 months worth. Their bills were how much? $5,000 a month is what it costs to live off of, okay? That's exactly what Bubba gave him. So he could live off of stuff for September and he could live off of that money for October. There's your $10,000. It was to pay bills and to grow everything. I mean, is this guy this stupid? Every case that this man has ever worked on needs to come back and be appealed.
him. I never am a Nazi. I don't look at his books to see how busy he was. So he has.
What are you talking about? You do the business. Now she has to back off the fact that she's not the business person. You would have said right there to these detectives, yeah, Bubba probably gave him that money to pay our bills because he didn't work for 2 months.
Yeah, I kept 100.
Right.
We've never had those arguments over money, and
right.
I've never given him a reason to hide it from me. Let me put it that way. So, when you think through the years, and he stayed pretty regular on how much he would bring in every week, and of course, every time he would take time off, that's nothing.
Right.
Every time he would take time off, that's many years. He's been pretty steady about the same because he always usually takes the same week off, week before between New Year's, Christmas New Year's.
This thing with the surgeries and the time off, that had to really hurt you financially.
Oh, we are totally in debt because we've had to take some of the money that goes towards his medical bills because we were saving up for the summer. We even rented our house out hoping to save up in order to do some things, and all that money floated us through some of we were starting to actually get savings.
Right.
It all went towards 8 weeks of no income. I mean, it was bad.
So thinking about that, the trip to New York was before the surgery.
Yeah.
The surgery is August 22nd, so the trip to New York was about when?
July. Exact date.
After the paddleboard injury, because he's unsure. He says he doesn't know if you should go on the trip because he's worried about not working.
Yes. So it was before the big fall.
Right.
But it was after the paddleboard, to where he was in pain, but he hadn't
big fall at the office.
Fall that he was incapacitated. But the actual date of Bubba's trip was it was July 19th, 2019, 19th through the 28th. So it's 2 weekends, 1 week.
So was he trying to squirrel some money away? I mean, do you remember, because what we're talking about, if Craig's telling the truth, then I believe that for sure there was $6,000 because Brian texted. Whether there was another 4,000 or not, I haven't seen that, but we're talking about approximately $6,000 in a short period of time.
Maybe he actually held it off so that if we were struggling or something, he just didn't want me to worry. So he'd say, yeah, I made 2,000 this month or, this week or whatever. And he didn't really.
Right.
So maybe that's just to, maybe Sandpoint wasn't so busy or maybe it was a bad week. And so he would just make me feel better because I did all the bills. He never knew. He just knew, can we pay bills this week? Are we good to go?
Yeah.
And so.
Okay.
So she's admitting that they're living literally week to week. You understand that, Van Leeuwen? Week to week. Money is the root of all stresses in fucking relationships. Money. And cheating. But money is actually even before cheating.
I think we touched on this before. Were there any issues with anybody or any neighbors or patients or anything in Sandpoint?
Yeah. That I can remember.
Okay, so an allegation, this is kind of a weird one, came up that this guy in Sandpoint had told some people in Sandpoint that his wife had had an affair with Brian in the past, and that's kind of what caused their marriage to break up. We've interviewed her at length. We've interviewed him at length, and their son at length. I don't think that the affair occurred. She denies it. She says no. Essentially, her story and the son's story and sort of the husband's story too, if you read between the lines, is she had gone to him as a patient, and her son, who was then 13, was in the waiting room and would tell the mom, "I think he likes you," and then it would tell dad, "I think that the."
Why are you telling her this? Why are you telling her this?
Doctor likes mom, and I think mom likes the doctor, and the son kept picking at this, and so she came to him 5 or 6 times, and she said he was really helping my back, but it wasn't worth the stress that my son was causing talking to my husband about me liking the doctor, so I stopped going to him. Their marriage had broken down over a period of years, and they were probably headed to divorce no matter what. But this was just one more thing that the husband, and to be honest with you, that the husband didn't really seem to care. I was hoping that we had like this rage-filled, jealous husband that had been pent-up anger. Those when you go, that doesn't seem to be the case. And they seem to have an alibi also that we're going to prove. But
Who was it?
well, I'm going to show you a picture.
Wait a second. So did you prove that alibi? Those alibis? Did you end up proving those alibis? You interviewed these people ad nauseum, at length. You just interviewed these people on March 20th and March 24th, and then you're having this conversation with Jennifer Drake on March 26th.
Let's see if you remember this person.
You have a picture
And
of
tell
them?
you a story that they told me.
So then you show her a picture of somebody. I'm going to give you the name. And I'm going to show you a picture.
No.
Stephanie Butler. Does that ring a bell?
Mm-mm.
Stephanie Butler, does that ring a bell?
Okay. So the odd story was, that came from Mr. Butler, was that sometime after she had started seeing Brian, and I'm not sure whether she was still going to him or not, or whether this was after
This is the same person, Jennifer, that you wrote a letter to. Stephanie Butler. Oh my God. And you said that you tell them you tell the police, I don't know this person. Then you write Stephanie Butler a letter. Find her address somehow. And when was this? A year later, in June of 2021, that's not what your letter says. That Brian would talk about And he treated like it was like everyone was family.
She stopped going to him. But they were with their family at Silverwood, and you were with your family at Silverwood, and one of their kids said, "Hey, that's the doctor that Mom is seeing or used to see or whatever," and that you guys were sitting watching the magic show.
Yeah.
And you were kind of down below at the tables, and they were in the bleachers up above.
Okay.
You were kind of down below at the tables, and they were in the bleachers. During the show, the magician was throwing cards out,
Yeah.
and his wife caught one of the cards. And your husband turned and looked to see who caught the card, and he said out loud, "Oh, you caught the card. You're the one that caught the card." And then after the show, she and one of her kids came up and was introduced to you, or talked to Brian with you there. Any of this ringing a bell?
No.
After this, he said what was odd was he said, I thought that Brian's body language was kind of strange after he had turned and looked and realized that we were sitting there. And then after she came down and talked to you or talked to Brian, I don't know if you were formally introduced to her or not, but he then took one or more of his kids, left the area and went to go get in line for a ride. And then later you and your husband came and got in line for the same ride. And then he said you seemed upset and you seemed like you were staring off at a wall, and that you then left Brian and went to the end of another line. And then Brian then went and got you and brought you back. And you were talking, he came and brought you back like you were upset.
I am thinking I'm losing my mind.
No recollection of any of that.
None of that.
Do you remember being introduced to a female patient of his at Silverwood?
I will be honest, I am introduced to his patients all the time.
Okay.
And I'm embarrassed to say that I do not
God, you just hear the acting in her voice.
remember names. I'm horrible. Even in our own church, I get so embarrassed because it's like I'm after 40, I have to apologize because I can't remember people's names. I do not remember any of that.
Okay.
I don't remember a woman. I mean, I remember several times being introduced to people, but
And this isn't a great photo of her, but I mean, she's a fairly good-looking, in shape woman. I think that
Did they say how many years ago this was? We go to Silverwood once a year, always in September.
17.
3 years ago?
You go to Silverwood once a year, right? Once a year. You don't recall this. It's not like you're like, oh my God, I've been to Silverwood so many times. Like, I don't fucking know. That would mean this would have been the 2017, then there would be another time in 2018, another time in 2019.
Oh gosh, no, I wouldn't remember that.
2017.
I'm sorry. We go every September, one time, with all our family. So it's my husband, my kids, and all our extended family. So it is literally our entire group of like 21 people. And so we see people there all the time that we know, or hey, so-and-so knows so-and-so. And so, no, I don't remember that at all. And I certainly don't remember being upset about anything for
he said
to the line. No, there wasn't
No, what he said is that Brian Drake was rubbing on Jennifer's ass in front of all the kids in the line, groping her and like looking and like grabbing her ass, like, and making like this and like looking and like, yeah, and doing this to this man. And Jennifer's like loving it. Like, yeah. That's what the man said. Like trying to be like, yeah, this is what I got. You guys are exhibitionists. Was that your way of trying to see if they wanted to play?
For what? And that was probably about 3 years ago that we lost my son. Literally lost my son in Silverwood. I was panicked. I was freaking out, running around trying to find Wood. I was panicked. I was freaking out, running around trying to find Wood. I was panicked. I was freaking out, running around trying to find Wood. I was panicked. I was freaking out, running around trying to find. I don't know if that has anything to do with it because we were all split up. But I don't remember that specifically. No, I'm sorry.
I was hoping you were gonna say, "Oh yes, I remember her, that
Yeah,
tramp,
right?
and her super jealous husband."
Exactly.
That was the story I was hoping for.
Wait.
Oh, I feel horrible.
Did he just say, I was hoping you were going to say that tramp?
No, I'm sorry.
I was hoping you were gonna say, "Oh yes, I remember her, that
Yeah,
tramp,
right?
and her."
No, I'm sorry.
That tramp. Have you ever seen the, is this, I've never heard of it.
I was hoping you were gonna say, "Oh yes, I remember her, that
Yeah,
tramp,
right?
and her super jealous husband."
Exactly.
That was the story I was hoping for.
Oh, I feel horrible. Gosh.
Who is laughing like this in a murder investigation of your own husband? March 26th, 2020, 14 days after he was murdered.
I wish I paid more attention. I always felt like there was a world that if I met ones, I would never see again. There were so many I met once. And in 8 years or even 6 years, it's like you meet them once, you never see them again. And I can't remember. It's very hard for me to remember those unless there's something that we interact as a family. Like I remember Dan's days because we sat down with them and had lunch with them. I remember, Ed Byler. I remember them because we sat down as families together and actually shared a meal. But I would meet random patients here and there. No way, so-and-so.
Okay. I have a question.
Yeah.
If you look at his schedules, just from an overview,
Yeah.
he always, the middle of the day is always open.
Yes.
Why?
Those are his new patients. So in Austin,
Even
we always went through like 1 or 2 companies that always gave us, mentor him through, what do you call them? Like Teach the World. They're like they help teach you how to run your business. Okay. They always recommended certain days or certain times of every single day that you would block off in case you get new patients. So a new patient will always take him anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. So he always,
No, they didn't. Oh my God. What the fuck, Jennifer? The max a new patient has ever been blocked off for has been a 45-minute slot.
in Austin did that either before or after lunch. Because he would see a block of patients, then he would end up seeing a new patient, always had it open for a new patient in case they called, and then he would have lunch and then he'd go on with his hours.
So then why did he see Caleb Bacone and Zara at 6 p.m. at night, squeezing a new patient in for what, 10 minutes? Gotcha, baby! Oh, Lana! Woo! Girl, let me cross-examine your ass.
Either before or after. So he always left a block open specifically for new patients. Now, if they're never filled, I've never, noticed to look and see how many. I know that he would tell me, I've got 2 new patients coming in or whatever. And sometimes they would call in the day of, or sometimes they call in the day before. But he always tried to keep at least a block open for anybody who would call as a new patient.
Okay.
And it was almost always before or after, like right around the noon. So that would make sense to me, unless there is something else going on I don't know about.
Okay.
So let me just ask a question, if you will.
Yeah.
On people who were mentoring you in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
How about Dr. Pat Patzer?
Yep, Bart Patzer. Yep, that's who he started his business with, Bart Patzer.
How about Joe Henry Rodriguez?
He's a colleague, just a colleague,
Just a colleague?
but a very good friend of ours. He's also a chiropractor. But the Bart Patzer mentored him to start his business, and then from there we used like a company. Like one was called AMC.
AMC?
Mm-hmm. It was a chiropractic consulting company. That's what they were.
Okay.
One was called Teach the World.
He writes in ink 50, 50, 50, 250, and then he puts a little money sign next to it.
Yes.
The numbers don't quite add up, but he had, I think, 650 or 600 in cash. What was it? Something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So are the number signs, does that mean cash?
The dollar signs means they owe me. So if there's no dollar sign, then it means that I don't need to collect today. It means they probably prepaid rather than pulling their financials every time somebody comes in, usually the morning of or the day before, he would pull theirs and it would be his note as he's adjusting, okay, I know that, okay, it's $50 today, so he knew to collect from them. That was his code to say I need to collect from them today.
So Eldora paid $250 on this day. Does that, but there's no dollar sign.
So I know that she was an add-in at the last minute.
So does this mean she's paid for 5 sessions?
But if it says $250, it means she must have.
Bingo.
Did you ask? Because I would ask her for sure to see if she actually did pay that.
Yep.
But she.
Did you ask her? What was one of my questions on the cross-examination of your ass, Van Leeuwen? Exactly that.
Was not on the schedule. Even she told me, she said, I called at the last minute saying, my brother's in town, because I would ask her for sure to see if she did the last minute.
So does this mean she's paid for 5 sessions?
But if it says $250, it means she must have. Did you ask? Because I would ask her for sure to see if she actually did pay that.
Yep.
But she was not on the schedule. Even she told me, she said, I called at the last minute saying, my brother's in town, he really needs a chiropractor, he's hurting. Can we please swing by? He's like, absolutely.
That's not what happened at all. Oh my God. It's all through text. God, yes, I got you again, you fucking lying bitch.
My last patient was at this time, come in, keep it in.
So he worked on the brother too?
Yeah.
Okay.
He went in and right after you saw that video is when he got up and said, hi doc, he had never met him before.
Okay.
And then he walked in and apparently adjusted it.
Okay. So if there's money but no dollar sign, what's that mean?
It means most likely they just decided to go ahead and, like, he didn't think he had to get money, but maybe they were like, hey, I brought $250 to prepay. Some of these people have like families. So let's say the Bilers, like they would end up, even though maybe his account doesn't mean that he owed money, they would pay $250 because I know you're about to see my kids. You know what I mean? So this is just for our overarching.
So if there's a money sign and a 50, this means this person, when they come in today, is going to owe me for the session?
Yes, it means I need to collect money from them.
So the 50 means they paid me 50?
I don't know if 50 means that's what they owe
God, you're so stupid. This is so awesome hearing this.
me, or 50 means that I'm thinking it means that they paid.
Didn't she just tell you she's the business person and she doesn't know what any of this means?
me 50 because it's in pen.
Right.
So when he goes like this, as you can see, the only time pen rises is after he's done with the day. So I think he uses the pen as it goes down. Because he doesn't have a staff member, he does all this all by himself, but he has to keep it moving. So this was his system of just knowing, you know,
Holy
I can write it
shit.
down instead of pulling his cards and then at the end of the day. So when he goes like this, as you can see, the only time pen rises is after he's done with the day. So I think he uses the pen as it goes down. Because he doesn't have a staff member, he does all this all by himself, but he has to keep it moving. So he is right. That's what they owe me, or 50 means that I'm thinking it means that they paid me 50 because it's in pen.
Right.
So when he goes like this, as you can see, the only time pen rises is after he's done with the day. So I think he uses the pen as it goes down. Because he doesn't have a staff member, he does all this all by himself, but he has to keep it moving. So this was his system of just knowing. You know, I can write it down instead of pulling his cards, and then at the end of the day, he would do it all together at one time.
So he ever traded work for work?
Yeah.
He did?
Yep.
So
like, some very close friends of ours here is the dentist.
All right, that's what we're going to stop off on today. I have another live here scheduled. And those of you guys that are following the Idaho 4 case, come on and join me. Idaho 4, it'll be popping right up. It's already up, going over there. We'll be talking. Eldora thrown under the bus. Everybody is thrown under the bus. Everybody is thrown under the bus. She just basically told you that she knows how to finalize his books at the end and what he did with pen and pencil. Wow. Alrighty. Woo! Peace. I'll be starting right away. Love you guys. See you in a minute.